Hi, welcome back. In part 1, I ridiculed the credibility of the claim that someone could make an exact copy of a highly specialized military map. This while they are being interrogated, this while they are being tortured, and to do so on an A4 size paper which is 9 times smaller than the average military map. In this part of my reaction to the spy network story, I shall show you where, in my opinion, the map maker's spin may have come from. If you haven't watched part 1, I strongly suggest that you go back and watch it in order to understand the context and content of my discussion here. In early 1981, I accompanied Comrade Peter Nanyemba, who was at the time the Secretary for Defense of the People's Liberation Army of Namibia, to the enlarged Central Committee meeting in KwaZulu. After that meeting, we proceeded to Zambia, where we did what we casually referred to as shopping for the People's Liberation Army of Namibia. One of the most important things that Nanyemba wanted to acquire from the Zambian Defense Force was military maps of our operational areas in Namibia. Unfortunately, though, the Zambian Defense Force officers could not help us with that because they said, in terms of the Geneva Convention, if they were to help us with military maps, they would be deemed to be in control of the People's Liberation Army of Namibia. And that would give South Africa a good excuse to attack Zambia, because in terms of that convention, a signatory cannot give military assistance to a non-signatory. And as you may have guessed, Swapo, and by extension the People's Liberation Army of Namibia, was not a signatory to the Geneva Convention because it was a liberation movement. Due to the absence of military maps of our operational areas in Namibia, our guerrilla forces would basically resort to what I would call natural ways of conducting operational briefings. For example, before going into an operation, a guerrilla commander would bring together the leaders of the units that he or she is commanding, and he or she would basically just grab a twig from a tree and just sketch on the ground. Okay, this is the area that we are going to attack. We will be coming from this direction. We will be retreating to this direction, and so forth, but doing it on the ground. That, of course, is not the most appropriate way of planning and carrying out an operation. During combat, it is very, very important for a commander to have a military map of the area of the operations. While some skirmishes might not last long, some skirmishes or battles can last for a long period of time, spanning hours, days, sometimes even weeks, depending on the scale of the operation and the strength of the target or the strength of the attacking force to defend against, and so forth. It is very important for a commander to be able to consult a map if the situation changes during the battle, and it often does. For example, the originally planned retreat route is blocked. What do? You have to change direction and so forth. It becomes very, very opportune for you to be able to consult a map that you can take out of your pocket, pinpoint new reference points from it, and change the course of action. The difference here is that you cannot take the map along that you drew on the ground, whereas the map that is on paper you can take out of your pocket and consult. So the long and short of this is that we most definitely needed military maps of our operational areas inside Namibia. After our return from Zambia, while assisting the wife of Comrade Peter Nanyamba in the storeroom of our Lubango office, I noticed there was an overhead projector. And incidentally too, there was a wall-high map of Namibia framed in wood that was on one of the corridor walls. I immediately connected the dots and I explained to Comrade Nanyamba that I could copy and enlarge our operational areas in Namibia using the overhead projector in the storeroom. He was elated. He ordered me to stop everything else that I was busy with and to immediately start with this project. I will show you briefly how I went about this. Okay, these are the steps that I have taken. I placed the overhead projector on a small table and aimed the overhead projector light at a wall about 2 meters away. I then taped the first placard onto the wall where the light was pointing. I then removed the map from the framing and placed it on a large table. And then I placed one of the transparent films that came with the overhead projector over one of the designated areas on the map and traced important features such as roads, rivers, vegetated areas, populated areas, farms, contour lines, etc., along with all the necessary text elements such as names. Once done tracing, I placed the transparent film on the overhead projector top and projected the traced image onto the placard on the wall. I then stood against the wall and retraced the projections onto the placard. The result was a topographic map that is more than 5 times larger than it is on the map I copied it from. I repeated the tracing and retracing steps over and over until I covered all the designated areas of our operations in Namibia. A tedious job, very tedious. It took me more than 3 weeks to complete the areas of interest. Now, the reason why I think there is a link between the process that I just explained and the allegation made by comrades Theo Ben Gurirab and Hidipo Hamdenya about the map maker is because during my interrogation, I was pressured to admit that I made maps for the enemy. I completely refuted the accusation, and I kept telling my interrogators that I made the maps for my comrades. Eventually, they stopped pressuring me on that issue, and I assume they stopped because they probably got confirmation that I created maps for our comrades and not for the enemy. However, they also tried to make me admit that I provided operational information to Commissar Tono Hatuikolipi. I simply told them that Commissar Hatuikolipi, as the third most senior officer at the Defense Headquarters, was privy to any operational information long before it came to me. So why would he depend on me for information that he is already privy to? They stopped pressuring me on that issue as well. The reason I'm mentioning these two interrogation issues is because they eerily seem to be connected to the claim that is made in this article. Let me read you the text that I'm referring to. The map maker was questioned, and the trail led to his superior, one of the persons viewed on the videotape. It doesn't take rocket science to see the person they refer to here as the map maker is me, and the person they refer to as the superior is Commissar Dono Hatuikulipi. It is no coincidence that I was the only detainee who in an official capacity worked with maps. It is no coincidence that I was the only detainee who was accused of creating maps for the enemy. It is no coincidence that the person I was being pressured to admit giving operational information to was one of the detainees whose interview video was screened at the briefing and turns out to be Commissar Hatuikulipi. So, I strongly believe that you have by now clued in to the fact that Comrades Theo Bengurirap and Hidipo Hamtenya definitely took my story of copying and enlarging maps for the use of our comrades and spinned that story to fit the narrative to justify the incarceration, torture, and disappearance of many of our comrades. If you are not clued in yet, let me give you one more of the contradictions in this story. The text reads, suspected staff were asked to draw a map to similar specifications, and the result was an exact copy of the much traveled original. Note the plural form, suspected staff were. That means more than one suspected person was made to draw the map, and miraculously each one of them came up with an exact copy. Yet the very next sentence says the map maker was questioned. This is just one person, singular, map maker. Can you see the hypocrisy here? Recently, Mr. Tokyo Sexwale, ANC stalwart and one of the prominent figures of the South African liberation struggle, admitted on camera in an interview with Dr. Mpofu on the channel SMWX. I will leave a link below if you are interested. He said that the enemy made comrades execute comrades by spreading suspicions about espionage. He described how some comrades were shot in the back of the head because they were suspected to be spies, just for them to find out later that these people were actually not spies. He said, and I quote, "We did things and we are sorry." If the ANC could investigate and exonerate those who were innocent through the Reconciliation Commission, why can Swapo not do the same? After all, we faced the very same enemy who could have applied the very same strategy against Swapo as they did with the ANC. Is it really a coincidence that the same thing happened in these two organizations around the same time? Every time the detainee issue came up within the past 36 years, Swapo kept pulling out the same word over and over and over again from their arsenal, and that is reconciliation, reconciliation, reconciliation. Swapo and the apartheid regime reconciled because they fought each other and they harmed each other in the process. If they did not fight each other and did not harm each other, would there be a need for them to reconcile? No, there will be no need for reconciliation at all. So, the question therefore is, what is the premise on which Swapo claims to have reconciled with her ex-detainees? The only irrefutable truth is that Swapo harmed the detainees through torture, incarceration, humiliation, and even disappearances. Who are the detainees that harmed Swapo in turn? How did they harm Swapo in turn? Where did they harm Swapo in turn? When did they harm Swapo in turn? Where is the proof, if any? I am asking Swapo the same interrogation questions we were bombarded with. Who? How? Where? When? That's how our interrogations usually started. Who? How? Where? When? There was a what thrown in as well. There cannot be any reconciliation between Swapo and the ex-detainees until Swapo provides irrefutable proof of the harm the detainees did to Swapo. There needs to be some level of quid pro quo between the two in terms of the harm done so as to warrant a reconciliation process. That is why we say and will keep saying to Swapo, if you cannot apologize off the bat, then please investigate and provide proof of the espionage that you accused us of. Thank you once again for listening. I'm Frederick Gavasop.